Sydney Michuda runs the one-woman design shop Super Creative, where she works across visual design, branding, illustration, lettering, and of course physical products through her online shop. Her story is a particularly inspiring one as she started her freelance career in the absolute midst of the global pandemic. It kind of forced her hand a little bit, and it's incredible seeing how she built up her client base from scratch to where she is today. Not an easy thing to do, to put it lightly. Check out her story now. Hope you enjoy.
I'm a full-time freelance graphic designer, illustrator, and letterer. I've been in the industry for about 7 years now. I worked at an advertising agency and then a design firm. And since March of 2020, I am now full-time on my own under my brand name, Super Creative. I do a lot of branding projects for a lot of small businesses. That's pretty much my go-to niche in terms of freelance design. Small businesses that have their own creative businesses where they sell jewelry, or they're a wedding photographer, or um, like making different home goods, things like that. And it's really wonderful to just work with people that are so passionate and on the same passionate creative level that I feel I am. Um, but then outside of that, I am branching out and do a bit more of illustration work and lettering work. And then I also sell my own prints and pins and different products in my online shop. Uh, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I love the name Super Creative. That's
Yeah.
that's so cool and so accurate as well. I actually
Yeah.
have your shop up here while we're talking, and I love some like the products good for you for leaving the house today. I love that that keychain. It's such an accurate
Right.
sentiment for these
Yeah.
days, isn't it?
I always like whenever I make those kinds of products, I like to have them sound positive, but they're still kind of grounded too. They're a little bit snarky, but not too mean or sassy.
It's the perfect mix, and they have like you're
Yeah.
right. You balance that. Like I'm looking at the salty as fuck salt shaker, but because it's a
Yeah.
little cute salt shaker with
Yeah.
beautiful lettering, it's such a great mix of like a little bit of a snark, but really well designed. It's it's
Right.
it's a great mix. Yeah. Cool. So you mentioned you were working in uh, you said an agency before, a studio before. What was that like? Was that similar work that you do now? Is that where you learned most of what you do now? What was that kind of compared to what you do now?
Yeah. So I used to work at an advertising agency, which was very different than what I do now. They would do a lot of experiential marketing. So if Intel, like the company Intel, if they wanted to have an internal marketing campaign, they would come to us, and then we'd propose different ideas of different things that they could explore doing to kind of motivate their employee base. Um, but I didn't really feel uh, like creatively satisfied, I guess, in that role. Still definitely very valuable work. It just didn't feel like the right fit for me. So then I changed jobs to a local design agency in Milwaukee, and that was a lot more creative, very quick, very fast paced, and basically, um, like 1 minute you're going to be designing an event poster, the next minute you're going to be designing a logo, the next minute a menu design, planning social media campaigns. It was a pretty small shop, so if you're a self starter, they kind of just like let you do everything, and that's kind of what I did. It definitely upped my game a lot working there because you are basically thrust into a situation where you have to really pick up the pace and work as hard as you can and be as like fresh and creative and new as you can. So I grew a lot working there for the past 3 years, and it definitely taught me a lot about branding and having that one-on-one connection with clients and things like that. So definitely helped a lot with what I do now, and it's pretty similar work. So
Yeah, I guess how fast paced that all was, and the range of different work types of work you were doing. Would you say that informed the range of things you do now? You know, physical products, digital products, lettering, that kind of creative melting pot was started there. Do you think, or is that an interest you had before?
um, I think I'm kind of a person that can never put 100% of myself into one endeavor. So I always like to spread it out a bunch of through a lot of different projects. So I think that's kind of just a part of me naturally. But I think working there definitely fueled that because the owner is a kind of an entrepreneur. He has his main business, but then he also has like a music production company on the side, and then owns real estate,
Oh,
and just like
wow.
he does a lot of different stuff. So I think um, it was a good fit in that sense that he was doing a million different things, and I also wanted to do a million different things, and we kind of were similar in that vein. So,
I mean, the next question here is, how did you prepare for self-employment while at your previous job? But you mentioned it was more of it wasn't as planned, I assume, as you were wanting with
right.
COVID there. Tell a bit about that transition where you were doing a bit of freelance at the time, but you weren't
Mhm.
fully preparing to jump this year, were you?
Not fully. So I've always done my own freelance work while working full time. So I would always have at least one project running, sometimes a few too many, where it would cause me to not sleep a whole lot. But yeah, so I wanted to have that consistent client base and client recognition and recommendations and stuff, because my eventual goal was to be a full time freelancer. I knew that that's what I was working towards, but I wanted to have steady full time employment while I kind of worked up to that. And my plan was to eventually build up like 6 months worth of client work before I left my job and took that leap. But since the pandemic threw the entire world for a loop, um, I was unfortunately let go of that position, and I had to start my own full time freelance business way earlier than expected. So when the pandemic hit, I had a couple projects, but nothing to fulfill my entire 40-hour work week. So it was a few months of just reaching out to people, applying for different, more regular freelance positions, um, posting on social media a lot so people can kind of see the work that you're capable of doing in hopes that they'll reach out to you for that kind of work. And then I'd say in about August, I was able to get those clients and get some pretty regular retainer freelance work to the point where I'm now working like 40 to 60 hours a week regularly. So, yeah.
Congratulations. That's not an easy thing to set up in such a short amount of time,
Right.
definitely. So, how did you, as part of this transition, I mean, you said you're doing a bit of freelance work while you're at your previous job. How did you learn everything around that, the business side of having freelance clients, marketing yourself or client outreach or client management, but also all your physical products? Did you pick that up as you went along? When did that enter the picture? And how did you learn, I guess, sourcing suppliers and e-commerce side of things and shipping? And there's so much that goes into all of that.
Yeah. So I guess it basically started kind of serendipitously. When I worked at the advertising agency, I didn't really feel very creatively fulfilled. So I decided if I don't do something fun and cool, I'm going to explode. So I, I just started illustrating this stuff on my desk. I did not consider myself an illustrator by any means, but I had to do something. So I just started doing like monoline illustration and posting it on Instagram just as a way to keep myself doing it and keep myself or hold myself accountable, I guess, to do it regularly. So I kept posting. And I mean, in the social media age that we all live in, the more you post and the more recognition you get, the more you want to keep doing it. But in my case, it was kind of a benefit because the more I would post, the more people would reach out to me for client work. And so I'd say social media was basically the biggest catalyst to gaining new clients or getting any kind of notoriety in any area.
Mm.
And then I'd say in 2018 is when I wanted to start selling like physical products and prints and pins, things like that. Because I've seen a few friends do it and a few other designers in the area, and it just looks so cool. And I really wanted to do it. I've always wanted to create my own things and sell them and package them and kind of work on more of a retail end of the creative industry. So I then created my brand name, Super Creative, so I could sell products without having like Sydney Michuda's enamel pin on it.
Mm.
Um, so I created my brand name then, and just kind of, again, gradually built up more clients and kept selling things online through my Instagram, through different local stores where I wholesale to. So, yeah. And there was a
Oh, wow,
second,
you're doing wholesale with stores as well. That's awesome.
yeah.
And you mentioned social media was a big part of that. Did you
Mhm.
take like a formal strategy, or were you just kind of posting what you enjoy regularly and seeing what happens?
Pretty much the latter. I just would post whatever I enjoyed. Um, but I did like kind of have a strategy, but it was more so to just keep myself
Mm.
accountable. I would make sure that every other post that I would post would have to be design or like a design post. So I could like post a picture of my living room, but then the next one would have to be a lettering piece or an illustration piece. That way I wouldn't fall out of the habit or the practice of it, because it's really easy to do that, especially as a creative when you have a million things that you want to do and going on. So I made sure to do that very consistently and very reliably, at least one post a week. And I think that that definitely, I mean, that's basically where I've gotten almost all of my clients. So it's been a huge asset for me, just posting my work, because one of my philosophies is always people don't really know what you're capable of until they see an example of that. So you might as well post the work that, I mean, if you're post the work that you're legally allowed to share, and then people will recognize that and then reach out to you to hire you for those kinds of projects.
It's kind of like, giving a signpost to the type of work you want to be doing, create that work already, and then you attract the clients that want that work naturally, and it just kind of snowballs from there. That makes a lot of sense. It's interesting that you
exactly
put it on the same account, I guess, as, you said, photos of your living room, because you're then kind of mixing the personal and work, and clients, I guess, start to kind of see a bit behind the curtain of who you are as well, which makes them want to work with you, trust you a bit more, and kind of add a personal touch to, as opposed to just work. It's a good mix, I think.
Yeah, that's one thing that or when I first started, when it was just my like personal account, because I switched from Sydney Michuda to supercreative.co. It was much more of a mix of my living room and then a lettering piece, things like that. Now I feel like my account is a bit more business oriented, where it's lettering, logos, and then products. I still mix in personal things here and there, especially within my stories, where it's just me hanging out around the house with my cats every day. I always make sure that people know that it's not like an agency. It's just me. Even though it's like a company, it's still just me. It's a first person voice throughout the entire thing. So
yeah, that's really smart. And it sets you apart as well. I mean, I say it's really smart. I guess it's also just what naturally happened and what organically happened,
right.
which is great. But it sets you apart from anyone else who's creating, I guess, other lettering pieces and other illustrations, because this has your voice on it. This has your personality as well. And that's, no one can compete with you, because that's who you are, That's, you're playing in your own field. It makes a lot of sense. Okay. So yeah, it's been a fair few months that you've been fully 100% self-employed. What's the best part of being self-employed? What do you enjoy the most?
I'd say being able to create work for yourself. I mean, granted, it's for clients, but you're working for yourself, so you don't really have a superior that's guiding the direction. That can be definitely beneficial in some ways, but it's nice when you kind of come into your own. You can trust yourself and trust your own creative direction. So it's nice that there's fewer steps in a process. So you create something and you can just send it out because you're the final say, because it's your setup. So I'd say that's probably one of my favorite things, is that I am my own boss. And then with that goes, you can kind of create your own schedule, pick and choose what projects you want to work on. And if you have a pretty free Thursday afternoon, you can just take the afternoon off if you want, or yeah.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? Being able to control your schedule. But also, I really like what you said with being able to move quickly. You're right, in a bigger company, there are a lot more, pieces in play that need to all fit together. And when it's just you, there's less barrier between, the pure creativity ideas you have and the output.
Right.
And that can be a really satisfying thing, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so on the flip side, what's the hardest? What's the worst part?
I'd say the worst part is having to hold yourself accountable when you set your own schedules like that. Because, working from home, there's just a million distractions. And I sometimes feel less productive when I'm working from home compared to when you're in an office. You're basically forced to be stationed at your desk all day because that's where you work. You can't really just leave for 2 hours. But so I'd say it's the productivity and accountability, keeping yourself at your desk working all day. And then also the lack of having coworkers to work with. At my last job, I really loved the people that I worked with, and they were so fun and so silly and so great to be around. And so it's a bit of a bummer not having coworkers to surround yourself with, but my cats will do fine for now.
Yeah, I fully understand that because it really, especially if you're, you're a social person and well, everyone, I think, is to some extent they need that kind of social
Yeah.
connection in their workday. Yeah. Well, that ties in pretty well to the next question: is what does your typical workday look like? What's your schedule when you're working from home?
Yeah. So pretty much every morning I try to clean up my house a little bit just so I can have a like new fresh start. I don't have to worry about clutter that's going to distract me later on. So do a little bit of a cleanup, get my coffee, sit down, put normal clothes on. I don't want to work all day in my pajamas. um, but so then I'll probably start with answering emails that have come in overnight or just things that I was maybe putting off by the end of the day before. So answering emails, getting some of those smaller tasks out of the way. And then probably mid morning, I sit myself down with whatever that day's project is. Usually more the deadline driven projects, things that need to go out by 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. that day. I try to get those done right away so I don't have to rush or have uh, too much time crunched later on. Um, but then in the afternoon, I'll probably work on something that takes a bit more time. So whether it's discovery for a logo or an illustration piece or things like that, then I'll tend to do that in the afternoon. And then sometimes, since I do sell products on my site, I might take a break in the middle of that, like at around 2 o'clock or something, and then print the shipping labels, package the orders, send it out. So,
That's great. So you get such a nice spread of different tasks throughout the day to
mhm.
keep like your mind
Right.
active. It's interesting as well that you I think this is a really good thing that you structure your day almost like a day at the office. You start in the morning, you end in the evening. A
Mhm.
lot of, I think, self-employed people, especially creatives, get stuck in this loop of working till 2 a.m. and then, sleeping until midday and
Yeah.
getting into like a night owl routine or like, yeah, I think yeah, that's great that you've managed to keep it quite structured.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, sometimes I do end up working like until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, which is a big bummer sometimes because sometimes you have to keep working, but you just run out of energy at a certain point. So that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, I try to structure it like a normal day at the office just because I like having my own free time at the end of the day as like a little reward to look forward to rather than burning that reward out in the morning and then having to work all night. So,
Yeah, that's a real challenge when you have your own clients is the trap of, well, if I keep working, I earn more money and get more
right.
clients and just keep working. And you really need to put that kind of barrier of like,
Right.
work is done for the day, I need
Yeah.
to stop now and then start it again tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. All right, so this one, no worries if you don't have an answer. It could be a trickier one. If you could give your past self some advice to help you get to where you are today, or anyone else who's kind of working towards a career that's similar to what you do now, what advice would you give?
I would say, like, no matter where you are, just keep pushing yourself creatively. Definitely avoid being burned out because that's a real issue with creatives. And I'm in the middle of a burnout stretch right now. But so we're like, it's a hump and we'll get over it. Um, but I'd say just keep pushing yourself creatively. Don't give up on that. Keep going for it. And everything, like any amount of hard work will always be paid off, whether how big or how small that reward is. It'll always come. I'd say, uh, given the fact with the whole pandemic and everything, I'd say probably gain more and more freelance clients. Um, but I mean, who could have seen a global pandemic coming?
Of course.
um, but then, yeah, I'd say like I would definitely tell myself to just keep posting on Instagram, keep making work for myself, and keep reaching out to that client base.
That's really good advice because all that, I mean, it may seem like a small thing at the time, but if you do that every day or every second day, fast forward a year, like
Hmm.
the effect of that is massive. Yeah, there's really no downside to
Right,
constantly putting out your own creative
right.
work into the world. Okay, so what's next for you? What do you have any big goals that you're working on at the moment with the shop, with client work, with your own work? Is there any big projects you can share with us or?
Yeah. So I don't know. My goal for 2021 is to take on a bit of less work, actually. Um, I have two retainer clients that require a lot of work. And then I also have my own freelance clients. So the two regular ones that I have are more like I'm freelancing for an agency. But then I have my own clients. So I would like to scale back some of the work with them every once in a while so that I can focus on some of my own stuff. So I'm not working those 60-hour work weeks. Um, but yeah, I'd say my biggest goal would be to balance my work-life balance a little bit more because since this is all very new, I'm not super good at balancing that right now. Especially when we're all encouraged to stay home, it's really easy to just stay home and like continue to be stressed out about doing your own projects and work and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, but let's see. Yeah, I'd like to keep creating new products to upload to my shop. 2020 or in 2020, I didn't really do a whole lot of that because I was focused on finding a job, things like
Fair
that.
enough.
Yeah, so I'd like to create some new products and probably find uh, just more awesome creative small business clients, things like that.
Nice. Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
great. Cool. Looking forward to seeing the new products that you work on. Should be exciting.
yeah, yeah.
So, have there been any resources that have helped you, especially this year when you've made that transition to freelance? Any books, any podcasts, any websites that gave any guidance, that had some really good advice, or anything that just kind of helped you make that transition?
I have a hard time like reaching out to other people or other things for help or like for recommendations and stuff like that, I guess. So I don't have a huge exhaustive list of helpful resources, but I did recently purchase the book by Chutzpah Design.
Oh, nice.
They have like a freelance business like starter book that covers everything from like self promotion to accounting to trademarking, things like that. And I'm only like a few pages in, but once I have a little bit more free time around the holidays, I'm definitely going to dive into that. And I've heard from a lot of other people that it's an amazing book and an amazing resource. So
Awesome.
I
Okay.
definitely will recommend that.
I'll link to it in the post then on the video. That sounds super
Yeah.
useful. Well, final question that isn't really a question is plug yourself. Where can people follow you online? Where's the best place to keep up with your work?
So my Instagram is supercreative.co. I post like branding logos that I've been working on, lettering pieces, illustration work, new products that I am adding to the shop. When we're able to safely travel in the world again, uh, like travel spots, things like that. So it's like we were saying, it's a good mix of business and personal. And then in my stories, you can just see what I'm doing on a daily basis. Sometimes I'll post a bit about my process, and you can check in on different projects that I'm working on.
Your
And
cats.
then and my cats. And my website is the same as my Instagram handle. So it's supercreative.co. And you can see my products there and see my portfolio and learn a little bit about me and reach out to me if you're ever interested.